All right, Coach Gunderson, hey, thanks for joining me today on Muskingum Rising, our final episode of the season. Really appreciate you taking the time, especially with the holidays rolling so close and present buying. So,
Yes, all the fun things. But no,
yeah.
thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, just I'm just gonna throw this out there without me queuing you up or doing anything, but like, give me a sense as to how you think the season went.
Yeah, I think we had waves of lots of improvements and waves of areas that we were like, okay, we're going a little backwards, and then waves again of lots of improvement. So I felt like this season was up down, and we're seeing good things. We're seeing sparks of it. I felt like where I saw the biggest improvement on the field was just our play.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like we were connecting a lot more with the style of soccer that we wanted to do. You could see it everybody on the team of like, the pass needs to go here. Maybe it was a second off and it didn't really get to connect, but you could see that their mind was working and figuring it all out, and which is one of the things I'm most excited to see, like, going forward. Of when it did connect this year, it was good, and it was good against any level of team that we played
Mm-hmm.
against. So,
Mm-hmm.
again, like I said, every season has up down,
Mm-hmm.
but I felt like we had more ups than
Yeah,
downs,
yeah.
this year.
Yeah, I would say against the. I mean, I didn't think you would get a result necessarily against College of Worcester. That was the game that I was at. Um, but I liked, like I said, I even against them, which they could throttle most teams. Right? They have such a powerful offense. Like I did think, like you were trying to do things with the ball, and it wasn't just sort of haphazard survival, And I thought that was really, really interesting to see. Hey, so is that what surprises you about the team? Like the progress that you made? Is there anything else or individuals that you didn't expect to step up that ended up stepping up?
I there's a lot of things that have surprised us this fall. We
Mm-hmm.
had a couple freshmen, Brittany Herrick being one of them, and then Hannah Ritchie. They
Mm-hmm.
stepped up tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't say some of it was surprising, but some of it really wasn't, just because of what I've seen in the recruiting process. But we asked them to step up in big ways, playing
Yeah.
when they were playing almost 90 minutes, being that starter, being someone who is challenged to be a leader at that young age. And I felt like the both of them really stepped up. I felt like, we everyone we had on the field, I could probably go down the whole line and tell you one way that they stepped up, but I felt like we had really strong leadership.
Mm-hmm.
When we went down, no one gave up. It wasn't, you could see it from our senior captains that were on the field to, the returning sophomores. That was a really strong class for us,
Mm-hmm.
with Morgan, Meisel, Madison Yankee,
Yeah.
and then, Jill Lepowski, who was on the field themselves. And we had people just, they never gave up. They just kept
Mm-hmm.
going. We'd go down a goal, we'd go down two goals, we'd score a goal to come back. It wasn't like we just sit in there. But that was a great change that I saw from this year from last, is that
Mm-hmm.
they never gave up and they always believed they could score a goal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an amazing feeling and belief to have.
Yeah. I like that. That's a big deal, right? As you know, right? Like if you stop playing in the middle of a game, you're never going to get anywhere, right? So,
Yeah.
um, all right. So this I call this the boss's question. How would you assess your coaching, like you personally? How do you think you did this fall?
Yeah, I think there's
And this is
always.
recorded. Wait. This is recorded, so be careful.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Don't put myself under or something. But
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think I think everyone has room for improvement. You know,
Mm,
I'm a young head coach. I
yeah.
never tell my team that I'm perfect. I never tell anyone that I'm perfect. I have these ideas and hopefully they work themselves out, or I put people in certain areas and hopefully
Mm,
it works itself out. But that's not necessarily always the case. I do feel like I have a pretty good coaching staff with me. You
mm,
know, my assistant coach Megan, and then we have another one, Will, who
mhm,
we all come up with really great ideas to help the team get better. I felt like, you know, we tried to put the best out there with what we kind of game planned and what we wanted to do. But
mm.
at the end of the day, there could have been better ways for us to maybe prepare the team, right? You know,
Yeah.
you always look back at a game and you're like, did I do what the team needed? You know, what else
Mm,
could we have done? What else, how could we have helped, you know, maybe them have a better understanding? What more could we have provided? And that's something that we do a lot of self reflection, and
mhm,
even like group reflection as coaches, as, you know, here's what we heard from our players at the end of the season. How can we support them better? You know,
mhm.
if it's let's give them more feedback, or it's we need to watch more specific film, you know, and things like that. How can we better that next year? So, you
Mhm.
know, I think everything we do as a coaching staff is always for the betterment of the team.
Mhm.
But soccer is an interesting game when you can't really change it with a timeout. You kind of have to just let the flow go and hope it works,
Yeah.
and then maybe make a change at halftime,
Yeah.
and things like that. So, you know, I'm always evaluating myself and trying to get better and being better for my athletes, just like I
Mhm.
ask them. You know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have that same expectation.
Yeah. 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 So, it, what do you think overall the team needs to work on, or what are the things that you sort of have on your board? Like, this is an area that we have to improve if we are going to make that next step. Right? To me, this is steps in a journey. It's not start finish start finish. This is okay. What is that big thing or big things?
Yeah, I think it's really the transition play. Whether
Mm-hmm.
that's how quickly can we get into the attack and not just having two people get forward. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we want to see more
Yeah.
numbers get in the box and things like that. But then when we do lose the ball, how quickly can we transition to get behind? And then, like, kind of coupled with that, are our decisions smart within
Yeah.
how we, you know, get into our shape? So I think that that'll come. That'll come with getting to know each other more, and you know, maybe watching more film on ourselves and things like that. But I would say that's probably the biggest area, is transition. And I
Yeah.
think that goes probably towards everybody. But I think we had a tough time of getting the numbers forward to get more shots off and get, you know, more goals. But then on the flip side is our shape defensively. You know, when we were set, it was great, but if we were out of sorts by any means, it was a little bit more tough
Yeah.
for us to get
Yeah.
back into the shape that we wanted to be
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. I think I saw that against the Worcester game on their goals. Like you could just see, like, I don't want to say slow in transition. I think it was more like chaotic in transition, right? Like people not sure where to go and what to do. And I think Worcester is so good; they just took advantage of
Yeah,
that where
it's
they
that
could.
confidence of like
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
going to be the
Yeah.
one who goes to the ball and I'm going
Yep.
to tell you I'm going to
Yep.
it, and everybody
Yeah.
else just moves around you. And I think
Yeah. Yeah.
we're almost there. You know, I think we
Yeah.
saw
Yeah.
a little bit of it, but it's like you said, it's half a second too slow. And when you're
Yeah.
playing against these top teams,
Nah.
they're
That's
already
all
in
they
the
need.
yep,
They
yep.
just need a half a second, or they just need that misstep, or they just need that seed of doubt, and then they just go right because
Yeah.
that's yeah. All right, just generally about the OAC. Do you think the season shaped up the way you expected it to be? I mean, I'm sure you wanted to do better, but and
Yeah.
from a positional spot. But do you? I mean, is
You
ONU
know,
that good?
the OAC was it's a tough conference, and we all know
Mm-hmm.
that, right? It's one of the top in the nation for soccer. And um, what made it a little more tough for us is we did have some injuries, like in the first game, against Heidelberg, that were significant injuries for us. We had
Mm-hmm.
our center forward Becca Knight go down with an injury, and she was out for a few games. We had
Mm-hmm.
Madison Yankee had an injury who scores goals for us, and she was out. I mean, she only came back and played in two other games, made impacts in those games, but only
Mm-hmm.
played in two. And then, like I said, Hannah Ritchie, that freshman,
Yeah.
yeah, had a concussion, and so she was out
Oh
for a
my
few
gosh.
games. And then
Yeah.
you have those injuries here and there throughout it, but
Yeah.
those are,
Yeah.
I would say, those three injuries that we had in that first game really set us in a different direction, and it
Yeah.
made the games in the beginning that we all as a team felt we should have beaten. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I think we should have been able to compete a little bit better with Heidelberg and be able
Yeah.
to beat Marietta. You know,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
games, if we set that tone with ties or wins, you
Mm-hmm.
know, it's a different feeling as you go through the rest of the games. And you know, the rest of the team did step up. You could see that in the Marietta game when we had
Yeah.
all three of those kids I just mentioned were out,
Yeah.
and we came back from one down to tie the game,
Yeah. Yeah.
which was amazing to kind of see. But then they slip one in again, and so kind of later in the game, and it was a little bit tougher for us to come back. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, I would have loved to kind of see where we were if we had our full stint the
Yeah. Yeah.
entire season. But I think you saw some really good work. You know, if we fast forward to the Otterbein game, I thought, or even the Capital game, we did much better against those teams this year than we've done in years past,
Yeah. Yeah.
defensively and getting shots off on them.
Yeah.
I think we had more shots in both of those games against either of those teams than we've had ever since I've been here,
Yeah. Yeah.
which really speaks to what we kind of have been working towards. And then you fast forward to that Mount Union game, which is a big rival of ours, and you know, one of them, and we go down a couple goals in the first half. We score a goal to get back in the game, and then the game just kind of gets away from us.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think the results aren't what anybody on the team wants, but even with having those people out, other people stepped up in
Yep.
amazing
Yeah.
ways, and
Yeah.
I think that's great experience for next year.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, to keep progressing and
Yeah.
getting better.
Yeah. So, you know, I don't hold it against you that we're bitter rivals, by the way,
I
you
know,
know,
I
so,
know, I know. It's a tough thing. It's
yeah,
tough.
yeah. I was torn. I'm like, I don't know what to do here.
I know.
So, you know, it's interesting the way you're talking and things. You know what? Like, it's not quantifiable, and it's just one of my many theories. Like, I think players need to, you know, learn how to win, you know, and have this idea that they're going to win. And I thought, like you said, I think you could have legitimately ended up 7-11, right? Like, I think that was, especially those first few games, like that Grove City, what's that?
Washington Jefferson.
Geneva. Well, yeah, somebody, you're
And
like
then
up 2-1, and then
Olivet.
yeah.
Olivet. Yep.
Yeah, and you're up 2-1 and you're in control, and then they score this like with 2 minutes left, and you're like, oh, you got to learn how to manage that sort of side of the ball. And I think that comes with experience and sort of doing all that stuff. But all right, last generic question. Assuming you're following the World Cup,
Yeah.
it's easy now. Argentina in the final. Today is Morocco, France. What do you think the final is, and who do you think wins it? There's
Oh,
money on the line.
what a tough question. What a tough question. I think, you know, I know Morocco has had that wonder story so far, that
Yeah,
Cinderella story so far, and I love to see that underdog win. But I think France has so
yeah,
many firing powers that they'll definitely win today. I would guess. So I'm going with like a France Argentina final. I want to say Argentina, because I do like Messi. I like the way he plays. I like that, you know, he is smaller, so he doesn't have like
yeah.
all the athleticism that some of
All
the
the small people are like
we
Argentina.
we unite, exactly. Um, but I do think Argentina is going to be up for a test against
Yeah,
France. They just
yeah.
Mbappe is just, I mean,
That guy is
he's a
brutal.
beast. He's fast. He
Just
can
brutal.
do anything with the ball, find anyone, and they just put it in the back of the net.
Yeah.
So it's going to be that'll be an interesting and fun game to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mbappe reminds me of the way I used to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't
Yep.
even think I played the same game as what he
Nope.
plays.
Nope. He's a whole nother level. That
Yeah,
man. He's
yeah,
a
yeah. He's
whole
the
nother
he's
level.
he's the he's the new guard, like with Messi and Ronaldo. Like
Yep.
he's
Yep.
clearly the lead guy. Like
Yes.
Mbappe's going to be some point he'll be the best player in the world because
Yes.
again Cristiano and whatever. So
Yep.
hey, let me ask you. Three ties in the season, and we had these overtime changes. Do, do you think they were a net positive not to have overtime, or would you have liked to have overtime in those
Uh,
games?
so I think for us, I liked the ties.
Mm-hmm.
I think it there were some times that we come away with that tie rather than it flipping the other side. But then
Mm-hmm.
there's that flip side. Like I just think back to the Washington Jefferson that first game. We
Yeah,
had the momentum. We
yeah,
were down 3-1. We come
and
back. Morgan
storm
scores.
back. Yeah,
Yeah, Morgan scores two
awesome
goals in I think like 12 minutes or something
minutes.
crazy
Yeah,
like that. I think if we had gone to overtime, I put a lot of money on us to win
yeah,
that
yeah.
game.
To
So I
get the
think
next one. Yeah,
it's um it's a little back and forth battle. I do think my team roster size, if we had to go into overtime, we might have had a little bit more injury sooner, just
yeah,
because we would have had been playing those players for a lot longer.
yeah,
But I do the overtime settings of the golden goal. Your team actually puts the ball in the
yeah,
back of the net. You get to celebrate.
yeah.
I guess I would probably say I'm indifferent towards it,
Mm-hmm.
but I know some coaches have strong opinions one way or the other.
Yeah,
But I do like to see a tie rather than a loss
yeah.
on the
Well,
record.
I would think you're right. Yeah, and you're scratching and clawing, right? Like
Mhm.
it's a tie is just sometimes as good as a victory, right?
Yeah,
True
yeah.
story. When I was started playing soccer, and we were playing in the league, and this is when I was playing Barcelona.
Hmm.
We had 20 games in a season, 19 of them, and I'm the goalkeeper. We would lose by double digits.
Hmm.
It was just sort of the way it was. And then we played our arch rival, who was really good, and we tied that game. And you
Hmm.
would have thought we won the World Cup. Like it
Yeah,
was like like we were jumping around. We tied
yeah,
1-1.
yeah.
So anyhow,
Yep.
okay. And let me ask you this other thing because I'd been talking to actually Brandon Bianco, right, at
Okay. Yep.
Denison.
Yep.
Yeah, he does the
Nice.
rules committee and all
Yep.
that stuff on the men's side. We were talking about this idea of adding time a week before, like an additional week in the front end and an additional week in the back end. I mean, do you think it would be beneficial for you or your program to have extra time, especially in preseason? Yeah, to start a week earlier. I don't know the dates, but yeah,
Yeah, no, definitely.
yeah,
I think if we could start a week earlier, and even if we could only go one practice a day,
yeah,
and be able to do recovery, it's tough to do those
yeah,
twice a day and try and get everything in.
yeah,
And for us, because of the way Muskingum's class schedules work, we really only get. I think last year we only got 5 days before classes started.
yeah,
So, we only had 5 days of two-a-days, whereas
yeah.
some schools get 10, closer to 10,
Yeah,
and things like that. So,
yeah,
if we had that extra, let's say, 4 or 5 days of a week earlier, I think we're able to break things down even more, get to know each other better, whether that's personally or on the field.
yeah,
Watch more film and not feel like you have to rush through everything on the practice field
yeah,
and things
yeah,
like that.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I I don't know of a coach who wouldn't want that. So
Yeah, yeah,
I think it would be very helpful, and I do think the recovery, if we could do that, you're going to have better recovery of your athletes, and then they're probably going to be healthier by the start of your season rather than those
yeah,
little tweaks.
yeah. I always say, just looking back on my days, right? Like when I got out of preseason and you were just getting geared up into the games, it felt like you already played a season. Like your
Yep.
legs were so heavy, and it took you almost like a couple weeks just to sort of get to a level because you were just physically so. I mean, even beat up to a certain extent, right? More
Yeah.
just the fatigue and got a little cramp going on or a little muscle pull, and you're going into the season that way. I think it's
Yeah.
just because of how compressed everything was.
Yeah, it makes it tough. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. And I know at my age now that I would appreciate the extra week of preseason myself.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
because I'm still going out. Don't.
Love it.
I'm trying to petition the NCAA to
Yeah,
be the oldest
there you
freshman.
go. Yeah,
Yeah,
making sure you get your beep test times in and
yeah,
everything.
yeah, yeah. My one, like the one beep,
The
I'm
one
done.
beep, you're done. You're good. You're
Yeah,
in. That's all you
that-
need.
yeah. All right, so to the season. All right, so you went 2-13 and 3, and like I mentioned, I think legitimate. There were 5 games that you could have gotten. Like
Yep.
I think when I was looking at it, especially at the beginning of the season, I was like, man, these games are too close to not be able to get something. So I think you could have gone 7-11. That was in my head
Yeah,
originally,
for sure.
and I guess the difference between that winning and tying or losing by a goal. I mean, do you chalk that up to just being so young? Do you chalk it up to what I mentioned earlier, just finding a way to win? I mean, what are those? And like you said,
Yeah.
the ebbs and flows, right? Lots of
Yep.
teams get sucked into the ebbs and flows at the wrong time,
Yeah,
and maybe it was
yeah, for
that,
sure,
right?
for sure, yeah.
Yeah,
No, yeah, I would say that, we got to get over that hump of
yeah,
how do we finish a game? How
yeah,
do we, you talked about the Olivet game, and I just look at that game, and it's, um, you're up 2-1 and it's last
yeah,
3 or 2.5 minutes,
and
whatever it is, and you let a goal slip in where, at that point you should just be kicking the ball away from the goal. So
yeah,
I think it is learning some game management skills, and being, a little bit smarter in those situations. And we talked about it a lot, throughout the entire season of if we're up a goal and how we want to finish a game. And I think it's just a learning curve. We
yeah,
have a lot of young players, within our program who are asked to play some pretty big roles. And I think they need to be comfortable in their leadership, because they
yeah, yeah,
have they have those ideas, they know what they're doing, and I think it takes some time. Now
yeah.
I'm thinking next year my first class are now juniors, and I have 3 classes there, so I'm hopeful that those juniors can help the rest of the team
Yeah.
realize, like, get the ball out of the back. Like, we
Yeah,
don't need to play
yeah,
this. I know coach wants
yeah,
us to play possession, but we're winning 2-1 or we're winning 1-0. No one needs to be near the net. So,
yeah.
I think it is just a learning curve for our team, and it's something that we talk about every single day. And I do believe we'll get there.
Yeah, yeah. That's right. I forgot. Like this will be your third recruiting class. Let me ask you: are you still at a point where do you think like you're talking to these possible recruits and you're there? I think we talked about this early on, where you're like, look, I can tell these folks like, hey, you can get significant time on the team to play if you come to Muskingum. Are you still in that position where you're still trying to get really competitive ball players that will compete for time? Is that still?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I think that's always going to be, the recruiting process, right? You always want to bring in players who, are either going to push your top players or maybe are slightly better than those top players. If you're not bringing that in every single year, your program's probably not getting too much better. So,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I think this class will be a nice another couple, with the the others on the team.
Yeah.
And I think we are still missing some key areas. We're
Mhm.
missing. We have Morgan who puts the ball in the back of the net, but we need more than her. So,
Yeah.
we have a couple people here and there that will put the ball in the back of the net, but right now it's still pretty significantly Morgan. And we need people around her to be able to
Yeah. Yeah.
take
Yeah.
some of those defenders off of her and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there's positions, and we're losing two pretty good center backs, two senior
Yeah. Yeah.
leaders, captains
Yeah.
within Jenna Jordan and Sheridan Wolfter, and so we need people to kind of fill those roles.
Yeah.
Whether it's someone on our team or it's people that we're recruiting, we have pockets now that we're gonna have to fill. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely, like I said, every year you want to have people who are competitive, who are
Right.
equal to the top players on your team, if not even better than them.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, but you're getting to a point, right, where it's not maybe in the next year or 2 years when you have a full complement, right?
Hmm.
You're still there's still a lot of opportunity out there for
Yep.
folks to step in, aside from the seniors, right? Like
Yep.
you're just yeah. So I
Exactly.
find that interesting, like the whole how you zone in on a recruiting class to do what you need it to do, right? And I
Yeah.
think the really good teams, the top teams, right? They bring in the best freshmen, and they're
Hmm.
not saying anything like, "Hey, you're going to play." It's like you're just hyper competitive. You're going to jump
Hmm.
into the cauldron, and then if you stay that way, you're going to have a legitimate shot to play. And I don't
Hmm.
think that's where you ultimately, I think, want to get to, right?
Yeah.
Like at least in
Yep.
my mind.
Yep.
All right, so where do you go from here? What's your spring look like? What are the things that you think you're going to be focusing on in the short term? And yeah, what's your spring look like?
Yeah, so when we get back from
Oh, that's
break,
right.
from
Yeah,
winter break, we'll start
yeah,
up. They get back January 9th. So
yeah,
the week after that, we'll start in the weight room.
yeah.
And they'll get back at it, and they'll get back to lifting and doing some conditioning and things along those lines. I've challenged every single person on the team to. I know we've talked about our new building, but it's finally ready to go. So we have that turf inside of there. So I've challenged every single one of them that they don't have an excuse as to why they aren't touching a soccer ball,
Soccer
seeing as
ball.
though we have an
Yeah,
indoor facility.
yeah,
And so every single one of them in our meetings was like, "Yep, coach, we're in. We're gonna
yeah.
try and find some time to, whether it's 6 of them or 10 of them, whatever our number ends up being, but playing some soccer together.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously on their own since we can't be there with them, but that'll be kind of that first good chunk of the spring semester, and
Right.
then we'll sprinkle in some leadership things along those lines throughout that time too, and then our spring season will start after spring break. And then
Mm-hmm.
we'll go for about 5 weeks there and get some
Yeah,
practices. And I would say, we'll probably focus on that, like I said, that transition. How can we get better with it? Because the people we
yeah,
have is the core that we need to
yeah.
be together, and we'll build around that when we bring the new class
New
in next
class in.
fall. So,
Yeah, yeah,
but yeah, I'm excited that the kids have a lot of opportunities to get better, and they all seemed very excited to take those
yeah,
opportunities and be as a group and do that. We haven't had that in the past of that excitement from every single person, and so I
yeah.
really hope they follow through with it.
Yeah. Hey, this reminds me, and this is not even on my list of questions. See what happens in these things. We talked a lot about, in the first talk we talked a lot about how you're trying to build culture and some of the dynamics that you're trying to create within the program to, yeah, to elevate the team and do all those things, right? Um, how do you think that's going, and do you think you're in really solid footing? It sounds like they're bought in, right? Which I think is, that's the
Yeah.
biggest deal, right? Are they bought into sort of what your designs are? And
Mhm.
I'm just curious, are the things that you're still looking to build? You mentioned talking about how do you build leadership, and maybe you could comment on that.
Yeah, no, I think this fall was probably our best culture.
Hmm.
I think it was the point of the team was organizing things,
Mm,
and it wasn't the coaching staff saying like we
right.
should think about doing this. It was our leadership council coming to us saying, hey coach, like can you help support us do this, do you think this is a good idea, and which was, to me, I loved it. I loved every second of that. I love that they were thinking about things on their own, and they were thinking about how they could really get it better. I felt like the new class, the freshman class, was pretty acclimated into the team pretty quickly. And I think that is a testament to our leaders. The
Mm,
people on that leadership council really have bought in for the past, whether it's been a year to my seniors who are 3 years in with me. They really bought in and they wanted to see the culture grow, and I think they have done that. One of our things we talked about is leaving your legacy, and I think that's what that class did. They left their legacy with the blueprints of what a good culture is and how we, want it to be. So I couldn't. Our culture this year has been the best culture I've had in the past 3 years.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Because I still think that that's the biggest piece of the puzzle. Like all these successful, the reason why I love you guys and I love Muskingum and what you're trying to do there is you sort of have this runway where you could build what could be a really permanent, really impressive program, and I think culture is a big part of it. And I hate to drop your brother's name, but I think Christopher Newport, right? Like that's sort of like an example of
Yeah.
what you want to get to, and if you do, what sort of the sky becomes the limit, right? So
For
I'm
sure.
really tuned into that. So sorry to do that, reference him.
No, no,
We
he's
could,
he's a good one. We have each
yeah.
other as a resource to
Yeah, I
help
was
with
gonna say,
different
what a
things,
great,
right? I mean,
right? What a great
mhm.
resource.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can see, how it's done at the top level, and like the
yeah,
in the weeds of everything too, and
yeah, yeah,
how we can improve things, and
yeah,
sometimes we do things that he hasn't thought about doing, and
yeah,
when
yeah.
I present it, and they
Oh,
try
I'm
those things
sure.
too. So
I'm sure.
it's always nice to have a sibling in the world that
Yeah.
you work in, and the holidays are fun for my mom because she just gets to hear all of the soccer
Ah,
and
the soccer.
things that we do with
Around
our
the
life.
table,
So
like yeah, like
yeah,
moving stuff. Like, well, I was set up this
yep,
way.
yep, exactly right. Yep.
I have a bunch of buddies of mine in the accounting world who keep calling me up and they say they miss him. So I don't know. Maybe
Yeah, I
if
know,
he
I
ever,
know. I'm sure he would whatever he does well with what he does.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, all right. So I just going back to, and this the sort of like I guess the last dish question. Um, I see you're already hitting the sidelines of games, right? So where are you in terms of where would you say your status is for the what was it the 2023
Yep, yep.
2023 2023
Yeah.
knowing that you have what a couple more months to basically lock that down.
Yeah, we have a couple commits right
Mhm.
now, and then we have I would say two handfuls of kids who
Mhm.
are probably they're just waiting for like the new year to get their entire package.
Right.
And if we get, let's say, 5 or 6 of those kids in the new year, our class is looking good. The two
Yeah,
kids that
yeah.
we have right now, both of them are great kids in the
Mhm.
first and foremost, they have
First,
great
first
character.
and foremost, yeah.
And then secondly, they bring that competitive drive on the field.
Yeah.
Every time I talk to them, they're always talking about how they're getting better on the soccer field itself, and how they're improving their game, and how excited they are to be with us. So, I'm excited to see where the next month comes, and who else that we get, because we have some really strong people kind of in the bay waiting
Mhm.
for that commitment, and hopeful that we get them, and once we do get those commits, I think we'll be super thrilled for
Yeah,
moving
yeah.
forward with
Yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was curious. Like I said, I had social media, because
Yep.
I'm a YouTube influencer. I follow this stuff, and
That's great.
I could see pictures of you and your assistants and what
Yep.
already on the sidelines. And I see it with my son, right? Like just
Right.
everyone. So good to hear you're rolling. So, well, hey, again, thank you very much. Really do appreciate the time. I will still be following you guys. It's been fantastic to watch, and it's funny. Like you get sort of like, as weird as this is therapy stuff. So this is where I need a therapist. Like, watching the videos of games, like me getting all like agita, and like having to walk around because I'm like, what? Come on,
Yep.
yeah. So really do appreciate it. Really do appreciate your girls, your team. Wish them all the best, and I'll be watching, and we'll obviously be talking some more. So.
Yeah, no, we greatly appreciate the support and your interest in our program and wanting to help us put it out there and get
Yeah.
I think it does get the name out there, and I know I love when anybody wants to watch us from afar and support us from afar. It's always a nice feeling. So no, thank you for really diving into us and wanting to see the improvement of this program and where
Yeah.
it's going to go.
Just so you know, I'm just telling you, like, my standards for next year are going to be slightly higher, right? This is about
Yep.
steps.
Yep.
So I'm not putting the pressure, simple
Nope.
coach pressure on you,
Nope.
but I'm putting the pressure on.
Yeah,
So,
instead of having those three ties, they need to
yeah,
be a 5
absolutely.
wins,
I
right?
told it
Yeah.
seriously. To me, it's like, what are the ones, right?
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
I'm like, those, you got to capture those. You
Yep.
capture those, and we could start talking about the other ones, right?
Others.
Like, hey,
Exactly.
is there one or two that we could pick off of those? And that's sort of,
Yep.
again,
Hmm.
the way I look at it. So,
Yeah. Definitely.
all right, Coach, wonderful Christmas. Lots of blessings to you and your family. Eat lots. I hope the fat man comes down and leaves you a lot of gifts.
Yes.
And hope the debates around the dinner table are tolerable for your mom.
Yeah. Those will be interesting. That's for sure. We love our soccer, and I
Yeah.
think that's pretty much what we talk about all the time. So, but yeah, no. I hope you have a great holiday,
Yeah.
and enjoy food and family as well.
Thank you. If you like this show, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. You can also find me on anti-social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks. This is a message from my Chief Marketing Officer. I think this keeps me.